Hello again. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a few days since I posted a video, and it's been a few weeks since I did Marvel Cinematic Saturday, but I'm back. It's Marvel Cinematic Saturday again. So this Saturday, today, Avengers 2012. Uh, Before I get started, uh, so every person has to decide for themselves how much they want to separate the art from the artist. When it turns out that that a creator is not a great person, has done some bad stuff, it's up to each individual member of the audience to decide how they want to continue, or if they want to continue interacting with that creator's content. Which brings me to Joss Whedon. So Joss Whedon has been credibly accused by multiple people, multiple women, who have been supported by multiple men, of being a bit of a sexual harasser, sexual assaulter. Beyond that, he's also just been. He also has a history of being abusive to the people he works with, to actors. Perhaps most notably was that guy from, what was his name? The guy who played Cyborg in the Justice League movie. Uh, what was the dude's name? Ray Fisher. Ray Fisher being one of the main people who's talked about Whedon's abusive directorial strategy. Also, the guy who played Spike on Buffy has talked about it as well. So, Joss Whedon is a dinkus. He's a dick. Joss Whedon's not a good person. So, as the director of this movie, how much do we want to separate Whedon from Whedon the person from Whedon the director of Avengers? For my part, knowing what I've learned about Joss Whedon, it definitely does color my my view of the movie. But like I said, it's every viewer is going to take their own views and opinions into it. So I'm not telling anyone how they should feel about Whedon, or how they should feel about the movie. Just saying that for me personally, yeah, it definitely hampers my enjoyment. Because I keep remembering that Whedon sucks as a person. But all that out of the way, my thoughts on the movie itself. It's a solid opening to the movie. The shield-based evacuation seems to go very orderly. So good on them for clearly they've done the drills. So, good on them for proper evacuation procedures. Uh, it's cool seeing Fury, Hill, and Coulson all together. Also, Nick Fury just gets a lot of great lines. Like, very early on, he gets the line, until such time as the world ends, we will act as though it continues to spin on. I think it's act as though it intends to continue spinning on or something like that. But, yeah, that's like, it's a good line. Uh, Clint Barton gets referred to as the Hawk. I mean, it's Hawkeye. I don't know why they never called him Hawkeye in the movies. It's just, I don't know, it's just weird to me. But it's not like it's not like Clint Barton was anything like comic book Hawkeye anyway. He was Ultimate Hawkeye. The Ultimate comics did have a pretty big influence on the MCU. Aesthetically, not so much tonally, because the Ultimate comics were pretty messed up. Anyway, yeah, so just call him Hawkeye. Loki gets a pretty good dramatic entrance. Also demonstrates that he's bulletproof, and also just gets some great lines. The classic "I am burdened with glorious purpose," which, especially in the Loki TV show, very much became a mantra of sorts. And then an ant has no quarrel with the boot. Way to show, confidence there. I do have to detract points from Shield, because that is one hell of a pothole they leave behind. Guys, get on that. I mean, get civic services on that. I mean, you're a military group. Where's the Army Corps of Engineers? Fix your pothole, Shield, is all I'm saying. Then, hey, the Avengers title card and the musical sting. It's a very distinctive musical sting. It's a very good job that the composer did with it. It is sort of instantly recognizable and iconic. Black Widow's interrogation scene is good. I like the fact that they speak in Russian during most of that scene. I don't know, it's just good. It's a nice touch. Coulson is very good at making threats. Yeah, he doesn't even need to raise his voice. He's just like, yeah, put her on the phone, or I'll blow you up with a missile. I'm not generally a fan of Scarlett Johansson as an actor, just in general. She seldom particularly does much for me. I will say, her conversation with Coulson on the phone, like when she's talking to Coulson on the phone, I did enjoy that. She showed the right kind of annoyed attitude. And I love when she says, this moron is giving me everything, and the guy's just like a not. That look she gives, just like, yeah, you are, moron. Then she gets that fun little ass kicking while Coulson just holds for her. Just very patient, and yeah, he's not at all concerned. He probably wishes he had some hold music, but I suppose hearing three guys get their asses absolutely handed to them is pretty good. Uh, Pretty good hold music. Uh, when she goes to visit Banner, she's very well dressed when she visits Banner. I like that outfit she wears. It's really nice with the shawl and everything as well. It's a nice outfit. Um, it's interesting that Banner keeps referring to Hulk as the other guy. He does actually accidentally slip up and say Hulk at one point in the movie, but he does try very hard to say the other guy. Um, I suppose just sort of part of the MCU's general wariness around superhero names, which I personally think is disappointing. Use the superhero names. Come on. You're making a superhero movie. Use the damn superhero names in your damn movies, people. Friggin' Marvel Studios. Uh, while Steve was pounding on that punching bag until he broke it, thought came to me that he's definitely got PTSD, which isn't surprising. But yeah, I mean, he's got PTSD. Um, Kind of a shame that that never really gets explored. Same thing with Tony Stark's alcoholism, though. He's, you know, apparently there were some. I think there might have been some plans to do Demon in a Bottle, but that obviously got dropped. Um, and yeah, for I suppose, you know, exploring Cap's PTSD, it would have been might not have made for the most exciting action movie, but whatever. Um, when Tony gets back to Stark Tower, and we see Pepper, uh, Whedon's foot fetish really becomes clear. We also got a close up of Natasha's feet while she was being interrogated. But yeah, this time we don't get a close up of Gwyneth Paltrow's feet, but and I mean she's just walking around her home, so it makes sense that she wouldn't necessarily be wearing shoes or anything. But even so, Whedon does work hard to get his foot fetishes into his work. Uh, Tony Stark makes a reference to life model decoy, which is a thing from the comics. Uh, they were always they were kind of a fun concept that also got abused, I would say, in order to justify characters not being dead. Nick Fury, in particular, like he was just kind of really notorious for always having life model decoys. Anytime Nick Fury died, it was like, yeah, that was definitely a life model decoy. Uh, I do enjoy the interactions between Tony, Pepper, and Coulson. Uh, you get the impression that the three actors like working with each other because they've been working together for couple movies already. Um, so they've sort of built up their banter a little bit. So yeah, they're fun together. And then Coulson being really awkward around Cap is really fun. I watched you while you were sleeping. Yeah, way to nail that conversation, Phil. The Helicarrier reveal is great. The Helicarriers go way back to the debut of Shield, um, back in the early '60s, mid '60s. Um, in the comics, they were invented by Tony Stark, though I think it ended up being, as time went on, I think they sort of changed it so that Howard Stark was the primary inventor, with Tony just doing some upgrades or something like that. Just because, you know, time marches on, and Marvel, the comics, has the sliding timeline. Um, Also, then when Cap goes inside and gives Fury $10, there's a nice callback to the earlier scene where Steve says nothing surprises him, and nothing could surprise him, and Fury's like, $10 says you're wrong. I think Steve giving the Fury the $10 because Steve is an honest guy. He honors his debts, you know? He makes a bet, he follows through on it. I like the bit about Coulson being really proud of his Captain America cards. Uh, that was cute. The scene with Loki in Germany, and like where he like jams that thing into dude's eye socket. Eye trauma is one of those things that really freaks me out more than most things. It's I am just absolutely paranoid about anything about like eye damage, so it's absolutely freaks me out. Uh, the old guy standing up to Loki in the square. It's a little on the nose. I think the original plan might have actually been to show like a concentration camp tattoo on the guy. I think that was the original plan. They must have cut that, just because it would have made it even more on the nose. Um, One thing for the fight between that brief fight between Cap and Loki, uh, and just in general, Captain America uses a much more acrobatic fighting style in this movie and moving forward. A lot more jumps and kicks and flips and martial arts stuff. We actually have a shitty uh, tie-in video game for that. So the video game adaptation of Captain America: The First Avenger, uh, by all accounts, a terrible game. Uh, but the fighting in it was handled fairly similarly to the combat style in Batman Arkham Asylum, the Batman Arkham games, with a lot more, with a lot of movement and things like that. And while the game was awful, Chris Evans did see a little bit of it, and wondered why his why Cap's fighting style in the movie was just straight up punches, just brawling. And he asked if the fighting style could be made more like the game, which is funny. This absolutely terrible tie-in video game is responsible for some pretty great fighting in the movies. Thor's entrance is pretty badass. Just landing right on the jet. The Quinjet that's not actually a Quinjet. Uh, so in the comics, the Avengers travel around using Quinjets. They're called Quinjets because they've got five engines. Like Quinn, five. Like that's the literal reason for the naming. They didn't bother with that in the movies. I think they might actually still be called Quinjets in the movies. If not on screen, then just unofficially. But they're not. They're not Quinjets. The scene between Loki and Thor is really nice. Thor does come across a little bit weird emotionally, switching from anger to sadness to hope weirdly fast. But there's good chemistry between Hemsworth and Hiddleston. They've got good chemistry together, and it makes for a solid scene. The Thor versus Iron Man fight is fun. Um, it's pretty clear fairly quickly that Tony is outmatched, but he does certainly hold his own. Uh, Thor is definitely more powerful. In an actual fight to the finish, Thor would absolutely crush him. But Iron Man does a pretty good job, and until Steve ends it. Also, the Thor slamming his hammer down Mjolnir and the shockwave resulting. It's cool. I like that. I love Banner's description of Loki as having, as saying his brain is a bag full of cats. Like, it's such a weird expression, and I love it. I've never heard that before, but it's poetic. And of course, Thor's defense of Loki, followed by him learning what Loki had done and saying he's adopted. And the Gallica guy. I love that at the end of the scene he goes back to Gallica. Also, the Lego model of the Helicarrier has uh, one of the computer screens has Gallica on it. It's just as a phenomenal shout out to what is admittedly a really good gag. And there's Steve's iconic I understood that reference, his pride at having understood a reference. Despite Incredible Hulk having, until fairly recently, having been sort of questionably canonical to the MCU, there's a lot that, there's a lot of that movie that never gets referenced again, and it's I always got the impression that that Marvel sort of wanted to kind of avoid people linking the Incredible Hulk as being actually a part of the MCU. Might just be me, but I do like Banner mentioning that he broke Harlem. I also like Tony Stark describing Nick Fury with his secrets have secrets. It's a good line. Uh, when Thor mentions bilge snipes to Coulson, uh, that's a good joke. A bilge snipe is a mythical is like a what do you call it? A cryptid. Uh, it's sort of a what are they? Bilge snipe is also actually a naval thing. Um, yeah, I could swear. And I could have sworn that bilge snipes had some other origin somewhere, but I could be wrong. Um, yeah. When I like Widow's interrogation of Loki, I hate the way she says "love is for children." That is such a stupid line. Like it's just a bad, bad line. In all, like all honesty. Um, but I do like her interrogation of Loki. Uh, in particular, the end of it where she just turns around, completely straight faced, and Loki just gets so confused. I like Loki's confusion there. Um, Bruce confessing to attempting suicide was pretty heavy. It's a pretty heavy moment, really. Uh, the attack on the helicarrier is good. Um, I really love when the one dude mentions navigation being down, and he's just like, "Is the sun coming up? Then put it on the left." It's the delivery. Samuel Jackson is just so good. He just delivers so many his lines so well. Um, Steve's sort of overwhelmed description of the technology as being it seems to run on some form of electricity. It's just I love how the his delivery just carries the meaning of I'm from the goddamn 40s, Tony. The Hulk Widow chase is pretty exciting. And then the Hulk Thor fight is pretty cool. Could have gone on a little bit longer, but we do get a better one in Thor Ragnarok. So, also, the pilot's description of the Hulk: "Target is angry. Target it. Target angry. Target angry." It's true. Cap straight up threw a dude right off the helicarrier, which is interesting because it's in the comics. Back in the 80s when when Mark Grunwald was writing Captain America, he had this bit where Steve says that he's never killed anyone. Uh, One of those things that at the time, that even at the time, no one really bought. Even at the time, people thought it was ridiculous. It's like, of course he's killed people. He fought in World War II. You're telling me that Captain America didn't kill anybody in an actual war? Come on. Uh, and like at one point, he does kill a guy out of absolute necessity, and just gets absolutely broken up about it. Um, it's funny that here he just yeet right off the helicarrier, yeet to doom, and it's just he really doesn't give a second thought about it. Uh, I like Widow beating Hawkeye in a fight. That's as it should be. Black Widow should always win against Hawkeye. Any Black Widow should always win against any Hawkeye. Really, is my thought. And I suppose that's not true. But Nat should definitely be able to beat Clint. She's just better than he is, you know? Do you feel bad for Coulson getting stabbed right through the chest after Loki uses his friggin' illusion trick again? Loki makes the remark, makes a joke at Thor of, you know, will you ever not fall for that? What bugs me about it is he does use that trick a lot. I dislike how little magic Loki actually ever really uses in these movies. He does mostly just do, oh, haha, you ran right through me because I wasn't actually there. It was just disappointing to me. But hey, at least Coulson did get to see what that big gun did. He got to shoot Loki, which is, it's gotta be always fun. One thing I disliked about Fury's speech to Steve and Tony after the whole thing is over, I feel like he should have used the classic Avengers description thing. What is it? The whole thing about there came a day unlike any other. Um, that whole thing. Uh, should have written down the actual thing there. But yeah, it's a very famous thing. It's how the Avengers comics always used to start, or not start, but like it would be. Yeah, comics will always have like a recap page that sort of tells you who the characters are, what the book is about. Um, and I wish that they'd used the classic spiel for the Avengers. It just would have been a really nice touch, I feel. Not really sure why they didn't. I'm guessing there's some reason. Actually, I know the reason. They were just probably too lazy. They probably just didn't want to. But yeah, it just would have been a nice touch if his speech had included a comment about yeah, about Earth's mightiest heroes uh, fighting against a common threat. Uh, to fight the foes no single superhero could withstand. Like, it just would have been so good if there'd been a reference to that, to, the whole. To foes no single hero could withstand. That was what the speech, what Fury's speech needed. Just as an homage to the comics. Disappointed that it didn't get included. Um, like the old dude in the place where Banner crashes down. Did scare the hell out of some pigeons. Poor pigeons. They just wanted a place to eat and poop. Black Widow's right in my ledger line. It's an okay line. I've got no problems with the line in the movie, but it became obnoxiously overused in the comics for a few years. Like, it was just everywhere. And it was just, it got annoying. It was like Black Widow couldn't show up in a comic without talking about having red in her ledger. And it's just, God, we get the point. We all saw the damn movie. Move on. So I hate the line just for that reason. Just because of how obnoxiously overused the comics became with it. I like Stark's moment where he realizes where Loki's plan, and realizing that in describing Loki, he was also kind of describing himself. He's diva. He wants flowers. He wants his name plastered across the sky, and just the son of a bitch. I like Tony offering Loki a drink as well. Tony's a good host. He offered Loki a drink. Loki declined at the moment. I do wonder if he got it later on when he, after he got his ass kicked, when he said that he'd be open to it. I wonder if he got a drink at that point. I'd assume probably not, but we can hope. And the Chitauri invasion. So the Chitauri, as an aside, came from Ultimate, the Ultimates. They were actually the Ultimate Universe's version of the Skrulls, who you may remember from Captain Marvel if you ever watched Captain Marvel. The Skrulls are a huge deal in the comics. They are just one of the biggest alien races. They go back to the second issue of Fantastic Four. So they go back literally to like 1961. So they are among the oldest antagonists in all of Marvel Comics. That said, they are very closely associated with the Fantastic Four. So, my understanding is that there were some questions about who had the rights to the Skrulls between Marvel Studios and Fox Studios, which at that time owned the movie rights to Fantastic Four. So there were apparently some questions as to who had the correct rights to the Skrulls. So MCU just went with so the Avengers. They just went with the Chitauri instead. Um, Shortly after the movie, the Chitauri were introduced in the mainstream comics as well, because that's always been kind of a thing. And it's not a new thing. It's gone back decades. Um, like people complain now about comics following the movies, but like it used to be even more blatant, as in like back in the 90s, DC killed Superman in part because uh, the Lois and Clark New Adventures of Superman series uh, was out at that time. And in the comics, there had been a plan to have Clark and Lois get married, but because of the TV show, they weren't married in the TV show. So the comics sort of had to put a hold on the marriage. So instead, they went with a different story idea where they killed Superman and had multiple um, replacements for replacement Superman for year or two. It was a big thing. You can find tons and tons of. You can find plenty of really detailed videos about the death of Superman and reign of the Supermen. Um, if you're interested in that, it's a big story. I actually read that. I actually had the trade for Death of Superman, and I read a lot of the Reign of the Superman comics at the time. So yeah, it was a big thing, and it was to my you know 10-year-old brain uh, really cool. But it's a different topic. But yeah, so that's just an example of sort of how much influence adaptations can actually have on comics. Uh, the MCU is nowhere near as bad in terms of the comics following what it does, and the comics have actually moved more and more away from that for the most part. Uh, they'll have a character dead at the time that they've got a major movie out. So, uh, yeah. Anyway, so the whole battle against the Chitauri, it's good. It's very exciting. I do notice we don't actually see anyone killed by the Chitauri. All their blasts go wide. They don't hit. They don't actually hit anyone, which I don't know. I know why they would do it. It's wouldn't make for a great family picture if somebody's head got blasted right off their body, but at the same time, it's just weird to me. It just like it's once you notice it, it's almost distracting. Uh, so when Black Widow and Hawkeye are fighting together, uh, Black Widow makes a comment about it being just like Budapest, and a lot of people. There was so many people who were wanting a story about Budapest, about what happened to them in Budapest, and it's like, no, you're missing the point. You're missing the point of that kind of reference. The point is that it's just left to the viewers' imaginations to imagine what went down in Budapest. It's so much more fun that way. Having it explained, it's not going to live up to anyone's imaginations. It's not going to live up to what anyone thought it would be. So you leave it a mystery. You leave it as one of those things that's just, you know, always wondering what the hell happened in Budapest that Black Widow felt it was like an alien invasion. I like the cop quickly following Captain America's orders. Um, yeah, it's like it kind of makes like you could interpret it as the cop deciding to try to sort of take Cap's orders as his own idea, but it's also just like okay, okay, we listen to this guy. I also like Banner riding in on that shitty little scooter. It's just monsters all around, alien invasion, and uh, and then also Hulk taking out one of those giant flying monsters with just one punch. Damn, that was awesome. And the iconic group shot of them, just circling each other. It's a great shot. Uh, Cap's good at giving orders. Especially like Hulk, smash. Great reference. Great comic book reference there. And, of course, the famous oneer, the shot of the movie, that long tracking shot. Um, it is a very cool shot. As the whole thing, as we see what each of them are doing. It's very cool. Whedon did actually have to fight for that. Producers felt that it was too expensive to do. Whedon made the argument that there is no movie without that shot, which, I mean, probably exaggerating a bit, probably overstating its importance a little bit there. I'm glad he fought for it. It was a good shot. It was worth fighting for. But so the movie still would have been pretty great without it. It would have been same quality without it. So I think he did sort of overemphasize its importance. During the fight, Loki catching one of Hawkeye's arrows. Pretty impressive. Those are some good reflexes. In real life, don't do that. In reality, the only way to catch an arrow is really by knowing exactly when it's fired. There are videos out there of people catching arrows, and it's a very specific trick. Also, they're not catching it like this. They're catching it, bam, to the side, because don't get in the way of an arrow either. Speaking of Loki, I love his squeak after Hulk smashes him. Just the air coming out of him. That was great. Hiddleston sold that really well. We get Hawkeye's famous crash through a window, which was the inspiration for Kate Bishop, the better Hawkeye. Yeah, I said it. Kate's the better Hawkeye. You haven't seen the Hawkeye TV show. It's good. I like it. Haley Steinfeld is so good as Kate Bishop. Cap does ask Thor if he's getting sleepy, which was sort of, I guess, kind of a nod to Cap's more famous "I could do this all day," which doesn't get included in this movie. Suppose Whedon isn't a big fan of clever lines that he didn't come up with himself, I would imagine. He seems like that kind of person. And then after the battle, we got Stan Lee! Stan Lee cameo. Stan Lee's so good. I miss Stan Lee. And during the newscast, we get the bit where there's some discussion of, heroes being held accountable. For the record, I'm all in favor of that. Accountability for everybody. People with power need to be held accountable for how they use that power. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty open about my views on authority, ACAB. So, of course I think that the superheroes should be regulated and accountable. And the mid-credits stinger with Thanos, and his voice saying that attack Earth is to court death. So Whedon actually had no idea what would be done with Thanos when he introduced him. Like, he just thought, hey, this would be. He just thought, like, hey, Thanos is awesome. I'll have Thanos show up. Thanos will be the big bad here, or the big bad behind the big bad. And it was, but with absolutely no plan in place for him, which is a pretty risky thing to do, I feel. Also, I'll talk more about it when I get to Avengers Endgame, but if you ask me, courting death really should have been Thanos' motivation. Would have made so much more sense if going with this comic book motivation of being in love with death. And the famous after credits shawarma scene, which when you first watch watching the movie in the theater and everything, staying through the credits because that's what Marvel audiences do. That scene was just like that shawarma thing was incredible. It's just such a great gag to have as the post credits. Like, it's just hilarious at the time. So yeah, on the whole, like I do still enjoy Avengers. I find it distracting that Joss Whedon is the director, because I still dislike him. And he does have a bit of a penchant for making everyone sort of snarky and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's an enjoyable movie. Fun action. There are some really good interactions between a lot of the characters. There's also some. There are some moments that were kind of cringy. Uh, yeah, they were like overly cheesy and just yeah, didn't really work. Um, but for the most part, it is a good movie, and it is one hell of an accomplishment. Uh, no denying that. I mean, it really did set the standard for shared universes um, in cinema. Standard that other studios have not actually understood. A lot of other studios don't really get why Avengers worked well. They've just tried to go straight into the shared universe stuff without trying to do the build up. Um, yeah, it did something that really no comic fan ever really expected to see, and it did it. It did it well, not perfectly, but really well, and in a way that did manage to capture what I feel are is one of the core components of the Avengers franchise, which is ensuring that there is focus on character relationships. Something that is not always followed in the comics. There have been Avengers runs where character relationships didn't get the focus that I feel they should have. But yeah, the movie did do a pretty good job of character relationships. Um, Again, not perfect. Thor sort of felt really left out of it. Um, Clint was brainwashed for most of the movie. Um, but you know the Steve and Tony, and the Tony and Bruce. Um, those two dynamics in particular got a lot of focus. What a shock that Tony Stark got the bulk of the focus there. Um, and there's some Bruce and Natasha stuff there as well. Uh, so again, I feel like they could have done a little bit better job on that front of having more interpersonal relationships get explored, but limited amount of space, so they did what they could, I guess. But all that aside, petty nitpicking aside, yeah, it's a hell of an achievement. It's a fun movie that did something unprecedented and set a bar. So that's so I've gone on for an hour now. So I'll cut the video now because it's already long enough, more than long enough. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it, and have a nice night.